Without any further ado, I want to introduce my special guest. His name is Flatzoid. Well, that's his YouTube handle. I don't know what his name is. I don't even know where he's from. I think he's South African. I mean, I'm not 100% sure, but it's kind of the sense I have. And we have a few South Africans that are members of the Z family. So that's like super cool. And like I said, he is a flat earther. He's one of those people. And he has his own channel called Flatzoid's Perspective. And I will be dropping the link numerous times throughout this in-depth interview. Let's give him a warm Z Show welcome. Without any further ado, let's welcome Mr. Flatzoid. Flatzoid, good to see you, brother.
Awesome, thanks. That was some awesome song. I said it was getting me pumped with the words. It was really awesome. Great to be here. And by the way, my name's Keith.
What is it? What's your name?
Keith.
Keith. It doesn't have the same quite the same pizzazz as Flatzoid.
Exactly.
Like my name's John. Apparently, it's the second most common name in the world next to Muhammad. I found that out, believe it or not. And so I like Z's much better. But cool, Keith. Nice to meet you, man. And indeed, are you South African? Was I correct on that?
Yes, I am. I live in the upper part of South Africa, so I'm in the bush. So I'm like just under Namibia kind of thing. It's really awesome.
The upper part of South Africa, south of Namibia.
Yeah.
Always interesting speaking to people from the quote-unquote Southern Hemisphere, because your seasons are diametrically opposed to mine. I'm here in the States on the East Coast. And that's always fascinating for me that right now I'm in the middle of winter. Well, winter's winding down. We're moving into spring. And your summer's winding down. You're moving into your autumn. And I always thought that was so interesting. You know what really gets me about the Southern Hemisphere is how when Christmas is celebrated, it's the middle of the summertime for you guys. But yet there's still the wreaths and the Christmas trees and the snow and the Santa Claus. That seems rather schizophrenic to me. Is that something that you think about, or is it something that you're just used to being, South African?
I think it's just part of the culture. You still just celebrate Christmas, but there's no snow or anything, because it's summertime. But I mean, it's just something you grow up with. Obviously, Christmas is a very pushed indoctrination thing, I would say, because it is definitely something me and my family don't really celebrate. We celebrate it more as like gift-giving day. You understand? Because we understand the nuances where it's based upon. So we don't really celebrate Christmas in the sense of Christmas. But
let's get into that a little bit, dude. Do you have a particular religion that you ascribe to?
Oh yeah. I'm a Christian, but I wouldn't call myself a worldly Christian. You know what I mean? I'm not a religious Christian because I don't see Christianity as a religion. I see Christianity as a relationship with God. If you don't have a relationship with God, you're not going to be able to, how can I say, call yourself a Christian. It's like saying if I sleep in a garage, like I would call Sunday Christians, if I go to church every Sunday and I sleep in a garage, it will make me a car. No, it doesn't make a Christian if you just go to church every Sunday.
I like your perspective on that, man. To me, any relationship with the spiritual, with any deity, it needs to be a relationship. It needs to be something that's real, something that's lived, as opposed to something that's just simply expressed.
Exactly.
One of the issues I have with modern culture is most of mankind seems to have a intellectual idea of God or creator or source or, like a cognitive level or understanding, but they're not really embodying it in their consciousness, right? And to me, I think that's one of the main issues with scientism, because I feel as though scientism, this religion of quote unquote science, is the true religion of modern society.
Yeah.
Um, maybe we can get into that a little bit more, because in the religion of scientism, there really is no room for a creator being, right? God is conceptualized again as a distant God, a God who maybe set the universe in motion billions of years ago with a big bang. And then the planets collated together somehow. And then through a process of abiogenesis, non-life became life at some point. And then over a process of billions of years, we evolved to the mankind we see today. Where's there a creator in that? There is none. And that's one of the things about the flat earth topic that interests me so much, because it evidences a creator on a personal level. And I'd like to know your thoughts on that. This idea of scientism, the destruction of a creator being, and the importance of having an understanding of the creator when it comes to morals, ethics, values, and principles.
No, I think you hit the nail in the head there. This is one thing I always ask, especially proponents who push the Big Bang and they push evolution things. I ask, okay, where did you get your protocell? Because they require literally nothing to exist by itself. They require something to happen, and note that all this is based on nature. So they can't evoke the supernatural realm because they're basing all this on physical matter, natural matter, which just all of a sudden created everything, which anyway violates the first law of thermodynamics. But I think you would agree with me. Everything that scientism does push is self-God, self-worship, and there is no other higher spiritual kind of thing. It's for you bettering yourself. You're becoming godlike. So, yeah, that's why most of scientism does push heliocentrism, because it's an impersonal thing. It's we are here by chance. We don't have purpose or meaning. And if there is a creator God, he's expanding with the universe further and further away. So he's very impersonal. And yeah, that's practically that's why I think the world today is run on scientism, as you said, because just like my belief in Christianity, it says there that the world we live in is Satan's world. It's the fallen world. He's the ruler of the world. And the heliocentrism is Satan's domain.
I like where you're going with this, man. And just so people know, this link for Flatzoid's YouTube channel is in the chat, and I'll drop it multiple times. Let's talk about scientism a little bit more. A lot of people will say to me when they encounter me and they find out I'm a flat earther, right? They'll say, oh, well, I believe in science, so I really can't agree with you. Which is so funny, because they're not understanding the complete irony in that statement. Because if they truly were practitioners of science, then they would understand the things that you and I have come to understand. Because true science, the true scientific method, the principles of empiricism, logic, reasoning, and objectivity evidence a level, horizontal, topographical plane, one in which the earth is basically the center of everything and the heavens move above us, just like we observe.
Mm-hmm.
But they've tricked this society through subterfuge, which I think goes back many hundreds, if not thousands of years. We can talk about the Jesuits and their control of academia through the Vatican, et cetera, et cetera. We can talk about the secret societies. We can talk about the Rockefeller-funded education system and the final push towards the globe. But this idea that the flat earth understanding is against science couldn't be anything further from the truth. It's actually the what I say is the personification of science, because now people associate science with people in white lab coats or doctors or universities. But these things to me are co-opted, they're controlled, and there's a high degree of deception in these institutions. So to me, and I'd like to hear your thoughts, if somebody is a true practitioner of science, which to me is available for anybody, you don't need a degree, you don't need special training. If somebody is a practitioner of science and a scientific method, then they should love the flat earth topic. But ironically, they reject it. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I 100% agree. I think the persona pushed on everybody these days is that just trust the scientists because they have a lab coat, just trust them because they say something. Then they can give all their papers and reviews and things, but not understanding that peer review today is not scientific. It's just based on publication money. So if they want to make more money out of something, they're going to publicize that. Where someone that's actually doing actual science they don't agree with, they won't publish because it's not going with their worldview. It's a controlled opposition kind of thing. Definitely science today is pseudoscience. They don't understand the scientific method. And I think everybody would agree with that steps into the flat earth arena and actually is honest with himself. Because what they're claiming is scientific, when you break it down and you ask, okay, let's see it from step one, they can't even give step one for it because there is no science for what they call science today.
I agree. Let's give the listeners a good example. For me, a great example of what you said is the way they tell us how there's a story about how they, quote unquote, discovered the distance of the planets and the luminaries and the size of them. And when you investigate it, you understand quickly that it starts off with an assumption. They assumed, based off the angular size of the Venus transit across the sun, combined with Kepler's idea of heliocentrism and astronomical units, they made an ingenious assumption that Venus had the same radius as Earth. Based on that assumption, they then calculated the size and distances to all the planets, the sun, and the moon. Again, as you said, completely unevidenced, completely non-demonstrable. They assumed the size of Venus. And why does it take flat earthers to point that out? How come these so-called scientists, these astronomers, these astrophysicists, are they unwilling or unable to look at this in a real way and scrutinize it? Because that's a fact. They had to assume the size of Venus. And then, of course, they say when we had the technology for space travel and probes, they sent a probe to Venus and based off certain things, they confirmed it, which to me is obviously complete nonsense. But so I wanted to bring that up so anybody here who may be challenging, our mindset here and our understanding, just to realize certain things is that that's not scientific at all. That's actually the definition of pseudoscience. Your thoughts?
Yeah, no, it's exactly. It's all just based on presupposition, and everything they built on that presupposition. If you look at it from a psychological point of view, if you had to base a lie on something, and then you get people to build their foundation on that lie, and you carry on making more lies upon that lie, because their foundation is already built, they're going to believe everything that comes thereafter. That's how cults are formed, because you're going to have the foundation of being hooked, and you think the foundation is true when it's actually a false narrative or lie. And because they can make more stuff up because they've already got you hooked, you're just going to believe anything they say. And this is exactly with the heliocentric model. I mean, I was laughing today. I saw a new article that came out where they found apparently a new star that they claim is only 100,000 years old. But guess what the star is emitting? Water vapor. Star emitting water vapor. Tell me, how does that work?
Right. Exactly. And what people accept as fact is really belief based on propaganda and indoctrination. Because exactly, how could there be any test to prove that a star is emitting water vapor? Or it's anything that they say that it is. The stories that they give us about the stars are nuts. They're crazy. What I'm finding, Flatzoid, is as people are actually doing the math on their model, they're revising the math and moving the proverbial goalposts as time goes on, to the point now where they're realizing that space actually acts in a two-dimensional fashion, and the functioning of these so-called black holes and the density and mass of these supposed black holes don't act as if they're in three-dimensional space. They act two-dimensionally, to the point now where they're inventing forces of nature. They're proposing new forces. And I say there's only one demonstrable force, and that's electromagnetism. They're proposing new forces, and they're adding things like dark matter and dark energy to account for 96% of the matter that basically they need to fill in to match their fallacious model.
It's God of the gaps argument. Exactly.
So to me, it's logical that if you propose a theory and then the theory turns out to be disproven, the theory gets disregarded or modified and start over. But they're building a lie on top of lie. It's like I always say, Flatzoid, lies are complex. The truth is simple. Once you start lying, you have to build more lies to maintain it. So I have a question for you. This is something I've been ruminating on often. And I asked Jaron this question. I always like to ask flat earthers this question. I might have asked it to Whitsitt, I'm not sure. Do you think the heliocentric model and its propagation onto humanity was bad science that they're trying to then cover up, or was it a deception from the very beginning?
That's actually a good question. I've never thought of it that way. It could be that they were caught in a lie and they just couldn't, admit they were wrong, kind of thing. Because now, how can we be a government and we lie to you guys? How are you going to trust us? It's like they backed in a corner. So if you find out that they did lie, where's their credibility? How are you going to trust anything else they say? So it could be that way, or it could be like the latter, which I do also believe it is instigated by deception. So I would say it's a both way kind of thing. The top echelons of it is instigated by deception. This way you can get into the Jesuits and all that stuff. And then the people that follow them didn't necessarily see it as deception. They fell for it and then realized, hang on, it's not right. Now they're forced to lie because now they're stuck in a corner.
Right. Because once one is invested in the system, the cost of going against the popular zeitgeist becomes too great. And that's when I think people sell their soul, really.
Yeah.
Let's back up a little bit. I want to kind of talk about you a little bit. Usually to get where you and I are at this point, where we're on the internet every day proclaiming this information, usually it's a long journey. How did you get here? How did Flatzoid start along this journey to end up here to discover, wow, they lied about the cosmology, and now I'm going to proclaim it on the internet emphatically. How did you get here?
Well, with me, it was actually quite simple. It wasn't like how can I put it? Like a lot of people that have a different way of going through, like, oh, it's straight away or it takes time, kind of me. With me, it was more quick but gradual, because I actually studied art. I majored in art and things, so perspective was kind of drilled into me. So I had an understanding of when I look out on things, it's a optical kind of thing, and I'm able to visually, in my mind, work out how I'm able to visually see what I'm seeing and how I'm seeing it. And then one day I was before I was going on holiday, I just stumbled upon a flat earth thing, but I didn't really take mind to it. I just said, oh, okay, that's weird, and I carried on. And then I went on holiday and I was at the beach, and then I was looking at a boat on the horizon, and to me it was like, but something just clicked. It's like, what is this? I mean, I can explain this with perspective. I can see that, yeah, I can show the same effect on anything. So then I left it at that, and when we went home, then I just sort of, in my back mind, okay, let's go look into the flat earth stuff. And from there, it just overnight, I sort of ball rolled into flat earth. Then I started doing more Facebook kind of thing. I started on the Facebook on their chats and stuff. I ended up leaving Facebook because there was some really weird people there. I had actually had like a stalker that ended up, yeah, it almost went very bad, and I had to just leave. I was like, I couldn't do this anymore. So I don't really do Facebook anymore, and then I ended up starting YouTube. And while it's been now just over 4 years with my YouTube channel, so that's practically where I got.
Wow, 4 years. So you've seen probably a lot of growth over the time. It seems like there's new information coming each day with this topic. I've noticed that the let's say the anti-flat earthers or the opposition seem to be growing more and more, especially lately with this moon push, with the space push post-COVID. I see this opposition growing more and more. To me, it's no coincidence that they shut the world down with the COVID thing. And then right after the world opened up, everybody's in space. Multiple nations, multiple private companies. To me, that's no coincidence. And it strains credibility that we went from this huge issue, this so-called catastrophe worldwide, but yet the whole time we're taking all this resources, budget, etc., and we're focusing on space out there when we have so many problems here. And that's one of my big issues with the whole space presentation in general, because to me, a civilization would have to basically meet certain needs, like a hierarchy of needs right here on Earth before they can travel. So I always question, like, you know, like where I live in North America, I'm in the US, but in Canada over the summertime, they had forest fires that burnt all summer long, and there was smoke for thousands of miles, right? And everywhere. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, we apparently have helicopters on Mars, multiple probes in space, rovers on Mars, the moon, but yet we can't put out forest fires here on Earth. That's impossible. It's things like that that my logical mind says, no, there's something wrong here. So that's always fishy. But I want to get back to the thought where, do you see like a ramped up push for space propaganda now? And what are your thoughts on that?
No, that's a definite. I've seen the same thing. And if I have to point out the COVID thing, don't you find it odd that they sort of brought it as a thing, let's all work together kind of thing? You know what I mean? It's like all of a sudden it's the uniting of all governments and things to work on the same goal. Let's flatten that curve, as they put it, which I found really odd thing to say. But yeah, definitely space is pushed everywhere. I can go to any mall, any shop, and I guarantee you I'm going to find NASA apparel there. Doesn't matter which country you go to, you're going to find NASA apparel. Like I was chatting on my stream now before this, me and my wife went to one of the stores today, and we were looking through some of the Bibles there. And the one Bible literally said, in the beginning, God created the Big Bang. It's like, what the hell? You're trying to teach that to little children, you know what I mean? And
wow. That's amazing. And that says so much right there. That's almost unbelievable, man.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, a lot of the, like I also say, you can watch children, they watch their programs and stuff, like even Peppa Pig. Now they're talking about a party, and all of a sudden an alien will show up with a spaceship. It's got nothing to do with the actual topic of the show at the moment. They're busy having a party, and then they'll have some spin, and then it's like, oh, let's go to space together. You know what I mean? They have to push the agenda more and more. But the reason they're doing this is to make everybody excited about space, even though they know they can't go. I mean, look at Artemis being extended again. People are still fighting for it, even though it's still being extended. You would think after you're hitting your head on the wall 10 times, you would guess, okay, that's sore, let's stop. The people still fight. Hand, tooth and nail say, no, you guys just don't understand.
Let's go back to the Bible. So one of the things that fascinates me is the people who approach me that are doctrine, Bible-believing Christians who argue for the globe. Yeah. And that to me is an unbelievable sense of dissonance. And even when you say, look, it says in the beginning that, you know, there was the void, and the Spirit came upon the waters and divided the waters from the waters, and et cetera, et cetera. And all the verses in the Bible that basically allude to a stationary, motionless earth, one where the heavens move above us. But they'll still stick to this. Like you said, now they're producing Bibles that say in the beginning was the Big Bang. And these pastors that will fight for the heliocentric model and the globe, this is insidious. And I wonder if do you encounter this same type of presentation from Bible believers and doctrine believers?
Yes, definitely, especially on the internet. Look, if you talk to a Christian really in face to face, I've been realizing you have a different kind of conversation. Some of them do just say, "No, you're just crazy. I don't want to talk with you," kind of thing, because I think the cognitive pain is just too much, because they have to accept, listen, yeah, we live on a globe because scientists said so, like you said. But I have a dilemma, because if you're really true to your faith and the Bible says God created the earth, why are you believing what a man thinks? Obviously, most of my life I've been a globe believer, Bible Christian. I didn't read the Bible as a flat earth type of thing. But until I read it after I came to flat earth and realized, hang on, this is totally different. If I was honest with myself as a globe Christian and a flat earther came to me and said, listen, read here, it says flat, I would have to really look into myself. Do I really have faith? Do I really have a relationship with God if I'm going to say, I'm going to rather choose the guy telling me it's a globe than what God's telling me in the Bible? And yeah, people fight for that. I mean, even like, I don't know if you know IP, Inspiration Philosophy, Michael, he usually does Christian stuff. He's also got a big channel on YouTube. He's a Christian, but he pushes the globe and he pushes evolution, claiming God created evolution. How does that work? I don't know, because that's not biblical. And it's unfortunately thing of the times that people rather will choose man's word and say, okay, because I believe them, I'm going to somehow work it into my belief with God.
It's very strange to me. But there's so many strange things in these times. That's one of them. I want to go back to what you said about perspective and your history in art, your training in art, design, and things like that. To me, it's quite simple once you learn about how convergence works, and convergence and divergence and perspective in general, angular resolution, et cetera, et cetera. It's not hard to then understand why things, as they go off in the distance, disappear from the bottom up, et cetera, et cetera. It's quite simple. Now, what I've come to, this is how I conjecture it, is that we see this world in a way that is non-Euclidean, right? It's not based off right angles, plumb, horizontal. There's a non-Euclidean nature to perspective. That's why there's convergence. But demonstrably, the world that we inhabit is based off of planar geometry, which would be considered Euclidean geometry, which is right angles. It's plumb, horizontal, and square. So when I investigated large-scale geoengineering projects, whether it's a tunnel, whether it's a bridge, regardless of the wizardry they use in the geodetic surveying calculations, which is kind of deep. Maybe we can get into that, but that might be a little too deep for people. Regardless of that, when I investigate engineering, they are using simple planar math, simple Euclidean geometry of plumb and horizontal, plain and simple. What are your thoughts on this topic here? Because people will come at me and they'll talk about engineering, they'll talk about geodetic surveying, they'll talk about supposed refraction, R values. What is your thoughts on engineering and this idea of planar math?
Look, I think that people have to realize you have to separate optical and physical. They taking the Euclidean geometry because, yeah, everything is based in Euclidean geometry, as you said, right angles, things. But Euclidean geometry shows that parallel lines don't converge.
Right.
Based on perspective, it's optical, it's going to appear to converge. It doesn't physically converge. So, yeah, you can explain things Euclidean based as good as possible. But when it comes to perspective, you can't claim literally Euclidean geometry, but you can base the foundations off of it because you can have a plane measured uh, Euclidean based. So just like when they take the planar surveying, they're going to physically use right angles to measure a horizontal and all that. Now, when you're looking out through a scope, this is one thing I'm trying to get through to Globers like crazy. You have a three-dimensional look at things. You have a warped reality, you could say. Everything is almost tunnel vision, if I can put it that way.
Right.
So you can't take orthographic Euclidean geometry and say, oh, look, perspective doesn't fit into this.
Right.
Saying, you see, based on orthographic, now therefore you will not see this or that. That's just literally ignoring another dimension. And I think there's definitely a short in trying to explain that how we see visually, Paul, it might have a different type of hyperbolic type of way of looking at things that we can't explain geometrically, but you can try your best. I mean, obviously, like you said, perspective, you have a eye line, but people have to know your eye line is not perfectly eye level. There's a difference between eye level and having level. So that's why I say when you say, okay, horizons rise, say relative, because it's not actually at eye level, it's actually relative to eye level. That's why the higher you go up, it's still going to follow, but it's not physically at eye level.
Right.
So everything above that eye level will converge to what you can call the convergence zone, and everything below ramp up towards the convergence. So it gives like a tunnel vision. But because your vision is 360, you can like imagine a 360-degree bubble around you. The radius through that bubble is exactly the same. You got your limit to that. And your peripheral vision is going to kind of contort all that to your radius value. And that's why we see how we do. I hope that's what you were asking to explain.
No, that's exactly it. And what I'm starting to understand is it appears as though the people who perpetrated this globe deception did so because they adulterated perspective, right? So they basically took how we see, and then that's how they inverted it to make us on a globe. So from what I could basically, the way I understand it is a few things. One is let's say the angular, the vertical angle to, let's say,
Elevation angle, yeah.
Polaris, right? So there's a vertical angle to it. Now, when you move across the Earth, that changes based on perspective. Whether it's, let's say, 1 degree every 69 or 70 miles, you see a change in the vertical angle to Polaris as you move. Well, this is simply due to perspective, like you said. But what they do is they invert that. They treat our optical phenomena as if it's planar and Euclidean, and then invert it and say we're on a globe, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then I think the second deception was what you mentioned, the so-called boats over the horizon. All right. If you see a boat go over the horizon, say 3 miles away offshore, you can take that math and then convert it to a globe with roughly a 4,000 mile radius. But as you said, this is all perspective, because demonstrably, if you take a high powered telephoto lens, you can pull that boat right back into your field of view, therefore proving that there is no Earth curve, no water curve, no geometric horizon. It debunks the whole thing. Go ahead.
Yeah, but can I share my screen? It might just explain a bit better what you talk about with the Polaris thing.
Yeah. Go ahead. Let me bring it up.
Shot. Okay. Yeah, this is something I try to do to try and show perspective orthographically. So yeah, I'm not saying it is perspective, but guys, I'm just saying I'm trying to present it orthographically. You can see the screen, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so this would be a guy standing underneath Polaris, and it's 90 degrees above him. And as he moves away, you can see the angle is dropping. So every 600 nautical miles, it's dropping by 10 degrees. So I'm just visually showing you this. It would give an apparent drop of Polaris towards the observer, an angular drop going down towards the horizon. So the further away it gets from Polaris, this would be the equator, would show it dropping. And that's how we practically got our latitudes. Okay, now I want to show you why this would be. Now, you see what, remember I was saying you have that radius value, that angle limitation. It would be the guy underneath. He's got this radial value of him. As he moves away, can you see the radius move? So he can still see the same distance up, but because the radius is the same on that sphere, it's dropping with
Right.
his dome of vision, you can say. And that's
Right.
why we see it in that way.
So you're explaining the phenomena of perspective and
Yeah,
why
trying
it
to
visually
orthographically.
drops.
Yeah,
Right.
trying to show it orthographically.
That was a good visual there. So again, why is it that it's the flat earthers that are finding this out and discovering this as we look in on it? Let me go here with you, Flatzoid. I have a lot of people who like to try to discredit me, minimize my understandings and things like that. And I feel it's an easy thing for somebody to do because they're just going along with popular culture and they're just repeating what academia is saying, which is literally the easiest thing anybody could do. How do you work through it? You seem to be pretty confident in yourself. Does it ever challenge you in some ways to get maybe so much pushback from people who want to minimize what you do, or maybe even that bleeds over into your real life? I think you're a family guy and, you're the flat earther and people know that about you. And how do you deal with that? How do you deal with maybe like the ridicule that you might get socially?
I think in the beginning it bothered me a lot, but you kind of work through it and you change your mindset. My mindset is I don't have to care what people think. Peer pressure doesn't affect me. So if a person has an opinion about me, that's their right. Just like I can have an opinion about them. So I'm looking at it as a way as the more pushback I get, that means I'm doing something good because I'm stepping over more toes. So you should take that as a compliment if people are trying to attack you, especially if they're trying to attack your character and your belief systems, because we can go the same route. We can say, oh, you guys are just, you're a glober, you're an idiot, blah, 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 and ad hominem for no reason. But you can literally take it as a compliment and say, yeah, thanks for doing this. Thanks for pushing against it, because that's showing me you fighting your cognitive pain. And I'm part of that. So that's the way I look at it.
That's a good way to look at it. And I look at it in a very similar way. I look at love and hate as basically the same in nature, but different in degree, which means whether you're showing me love or hate, you're expressing an emotion towards me, which is just, to me, just two ends, just like you have hot and cold or light and dark. They're of the same nature, but different in degree. So really, I can transmute that energy of hate into love very easily. So yeah. I like where you came with that. That's a positive thing. Let's talk about that a little bit, man. This idea that we are energetic beings, right? I consistently say that there's only one demonstrable force in this reality, and that's electromagnetism. I don't see, they say there's three other forces of nature. They say there's gravity, a weak nuclear force, and a strong nuclear force. Well, I think those three are completely unevidenced. So to me, everything's electrical. Now, I know that we're electrical because I know you can literally read the electrical signal off of our bodies. Look no further than an EEG, which is an electroencephalogram, or an EKG, which is electrocardiogram, where you're reading the neurological energy off the human body. We are electric. This appears to be an electrical world. So to me, we have great power. So not only are we receivers of this electrical energy, but we're transmitters of this energy. And I think that gives us great power. Go ahead. Your thoughts.
No, I agree with you. Definitely. We can literally show electromagnetism to be a thing. We can't show gravity to be a thing. We can't show actually nucleus and things. Now you have a model that explains things well by using a nucleus and all that, the nuclear force, but it's not proven. It's just a model that kind of explains everything in a good manner, and we can use it. It doesn't make it reality, but it works. Now, when it comes to electromagnetic, I 100% agree. That's why even frequencies are used to even hypnotize people. I mean, just like the music you had now in the beginning of the stream, it gives a certain frequency off that affects people's emotions. And that's even how churches operate. They operate in a certain frequency with their songs to emotionally get people into a hype. And if we aren't electrical beings with that happening, it wouldn't be possible.
Let's talk about gravity. Here's my thoughts on gravity, and then I'm going to kick it to you. The only reason we even need to understand, or we even conjectured to say why things go down, is because somebody told us we live on a spinning globe. If you never had that in your mind, down is just down, because either they're more dense or they weigh more. So I'm okay, Flatzoid, with down is down. I'm okay with things fall down because down is down. I'm okay with that. I don't need to know anymore. But you know that we can't just leave it there. Now, many say there needs to be a force, something that is either attracting or pushing things down. Many in the flat earth community have postulated electrostatics. Others in the community, Flatzoid, and I do not hand wave dismiss them, postulate a rising earth. Now, I've investigated their claims, and they have some compelling so-called proofs to their rising earth. So I don't hand wave dismiss them, because I find that hand wave dismissal to be, let's say, disingenuous logically. All right. So now mainstream science is telling us that no, it's not 1666 Newton and the mass attracting mass. They say it's 1910 Einstein theory of general relativity and the bending and warping of space-time.
Yeah.
That's what they're defining as gravity. Now, we talked about evidence. First of all, how could you demonstrate the bending and warping of space and time, which are abstractions and concepts, therefore beyond testing and beyond verification? So right there, they lost me with it. With that being said, your thoughts on gravity?
Yeah, no, I still think, like you said, gravity is just there because it's the glue for the globe. If they don't have gravity, they can't have their sphere, because they need it to coalesce into a single mass. So they need gravity for that. And they require it to be a force for that, by the way. That's something that general relativity doesn't answer. General relativity is just a mathematical construct which gives the apparent deviations a manifestation, you could say. That's why they say it's like a flat fabric of space, and the undulations that is giving an unbalanced force which causes it to move. Obviously, I'm not for rising earth, because you know that, but I've tried to talk to Dal about this stuff, but he just doesn't want to converse with me. If I do, he just swears at me and kicks me off, kind of thing. So
wait, hold on. You've tried to have this conversation with Dell? Have you
twice
invited
already
him to your
live
show?
on his stream twice. He literally swears at me and kicks me off.
Is he aware of you? Does he know you have a channel and stuff?
Oh yeah. Dell's been. I mean, we've had real conversations. He's been on my chat. I mean, recently. So it's when it comes to Dell, I would say he's dishonest. But I mean, like you, I wouldn't say you're dishonest. You know what I mean? You're trying to figure the truth out. But when it comes to, I'm very vocal against some flat earthers as well. Not because of what they believe, it's how they are, how can I say, pushing something. Let's have a conversation. We don't have to agree on everything. I mean, just like I don't agree with the dielectrics things. When I first got into flat Earth, that's the first thing I looked into. I believed the ether. I looked into the electro acceleration and all that, but I couldn't find compelling evidence, according to me, that it is the all being. Yes, you can demonstrate things moving with electric current and stuff. 100%. I'm not going to say there's not an electric current. But when it comes to saying, okay, things go down because of that, I think I need a bit more evidence for that. So with me, based on experience and what I can demonstrate and I can do scientific method, I would say things can fall based on an unbalanced force. Just like I can have a bowling ball sitting somewhere. If there's a slope and I take a block away, it's going to fall because it's unbalanced. Just like you, down is down, up is up. 100%. That can be natural law to us. Just like entropy is natural law, you don't have to have a mechanism of why, but it happens. The globe needs it to have a mechanism because they need it to be a ball. That's a different story. But now when it comes to me with the rising earth, the issue I have is, especially because it's also something, I'm a Christian and the Bible says it's stationary. Obviously, that's one thing. But another thing is, there's no evidence for it going up. Now, you can use something like an accelerometer and say, but when I drop it, it shows 0G. 0G, you can literally calibrate your phone to say when it's sitting still at 0G, and when I drop it, then it shows 1G. The other issue I have with the rising earth is it's literally a flat earth society narrative, which is pushed the same as the globe, because the globe, according to general relativity, is rising up as well to give the appearance that things are falling. When the apple falls, it's not really falling. It's actually you rising up to meet it. Obviously, on a globe, it's more stupid because it's a sphere, but they say you can't think fourth dimensional. The sphere doesn't really expand, but that's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I like your thoughts on that, and I could agree with a lot of that. That understanding, man. And I get with electrostatics, we can demonstrate things. You can levitate things using electrostatics. You can have things drop down, using a Van der Graaf generator and supplying charge to a neutrally buoyant balloon with a piece of metal on it. So I understand there's things we can do with electrostatics to demonstrate how we can manipulate that. But to claim it as gravity, I think, is still maybe a bridge too far, or it's yet to be proven.
Exactly. But you know what I like about what you're trying to do? Just what I agree. We can get different opinion views to try and get together, which is really awesome. That's what I like what you're trying to do. So I'm 100% on board with that.
Well, I like that. So let's talk about it. I see a lot of division in the flat earth community, and I have my theories about why. One of the reasons, I think, is because they've shadow banned the topic. They've censored the topic to such a point that all the primary channels in the flat earth community are not being allowed to grow naturally as they would if the algorithms were functioning properly and not suppressing the topic. So I think what's happening is they're creating a plantation mentality amongst the content creators, where it becomes difficult to, let's say, make a livelihood off of this endeavor or even support yourself through this. And I think they've created a crabs in the buckets syndrome and a plantation mindset where we're now warring with each other, conflict, where it's a bit too much, where you have people saying things that are inappropriate about other people making claims about people that are unevidenced. You could think what you want about certain content creators, but there's been claims that people make that, to me are unproven, whether somebody's a shill or a plant, et cetera, et cetera. And like we have all these different camps in the flat Earth community, but to me, we have so much more in common than we do differences. What's the hang up, man? What do you see within the community, and what would you prescribe as maybe a remedy or something?
I think, I don't know, it's different because everybody has their different way of looking at things. I think I would say at a time people have to maybe just put their differences aside. Obviously, you still not, like I said, you don't agree, and I have called out a lot of people in the past, and that's because of our differences and stuff, and obviously how it's been reacting towards each other. But yeah, maybe sometimes it's so good just to say, okay, let's try and put it through the past, move on, try and work together, because if we're not going to work together, it's going to just get worse. I can't really uh, dictate for anybody what they should think and how they should feel. But according to me, I think, yeah, maybe it's time we should start contributing to each other and helping, because we do get censored more and more, and we're getting more pushback no matter what we do. So all the help together you can get, the better.
Yeah, I would agree with that, man, because everybody has their own special skill and talent to contribute to this understanding, because people have certain skills and limitations, but together is where the power is, right? Some people are better orators. Some people are more appropriate for debating or interacting with the public. Other people are better at research. Other people are better at discourse. Yeah, so there's so many different facets to this that I do think it needs to be something where, we kind of need to set our egos aside for a little bit. You have to leave your ego at the door in the service of doing what is right, because to me, this is about truth versus non-truth, truth versus falsehood. To me, this is really a spiritual battle. And that's the most important thing, man, because if indeed there is some type of, let's say, controlling cabal, for lack of a better term, that has basically hijacked the information from the ancients, occulted it from us, and now is presenting us with a deception for control, what greater battle is there at this moment other than this spiritual war? There could be no greater battle at this point. So that's where I'm looking at it, to say, hey, whatever this is going to be, this isn't in my hands anymore. I could just do what I feel is right, present information. We're not harming anybody with this information. The last I checked, we can still speak. As long as we are not creating loss, injury, or harm, we have the right to do so, at least here in America. So I'm going to continue to do this in light of it. And I hope it goes where it needs to go. What are your thoughts about the future? And I'd like to ask people this in the community. Do you think the mass culture, society, will reach this understanding at some point? It may not be a 50% of the people come to understand the globe is a lie, but do you think we'll reach a threshold number, whether it's 20%, 25%, to really maybe tip the scales of injustice and really start to make a change to get mainstream traction on this? Or do you think this will always be a niche community as they push their one world domination onto the populace? Your thoughts?
No, I think it's definitely taking traction. I'm seeing more and more shows these days showing flat Earth kind of behind the sidelines to everybody. You usually see like even cartoons coming out now with like some flat Earth map in the background or on the table or whatever, or they just talk about flat Earth or anything. It's a way of maybe subtly trying to bring it into people to realize, okay, there's something to this. Because for all you know, they may be trying to condition people to accept it a bit easier, and that takes time. And maybe, who knows, in 20, 30 years, if we're still around, whatever, and they say, yeah, okay, guys, we have to tell you it was actually flat. And these people were scamming you, and they're going to have to pay for their crimes. You know what I mean? Because they're going to have to give a fall guy for whatever happens. But maybe they're just trying to soften the people to get into it a bit more. You know what I mean? But I do think eventually, even it will get to a norm, because it's already starting to normalize that people know there's flat earthers everywhere. It's really getting normalized. And I'm seeing it being pushed more and more.
I do think it's growing. I agree with you. I mean, even with the moon, through a private company called Intuitive Technology, which, by the way, was funded 118 million by NASA, admittedly, and it used the NASA guidance system to supposedly land on the moon sideways. So it was a NASA-run project from the top down. It's an illusion of private industry. It's the same thing with SpaceX, Flatzoid.
Mm-hmm.
They're in bed with NASA. It's all NASA engineering. It's NASA coordinates. So this idea
Yep.
that these private companies are going anywhere, that's a smokescreen and it's a falsehood. But what I'm noticing is, even in light of this space presentation and the space push, people don't seem to even care. They don't even seem to be involved in it. When I go around and interact with people, nobody's talking about that the US is on the moon for the first time in 50 years. Nobody's paying attention. At least they're not discussing it. Now, that might be a good thing or a bad thing, because it could mean one of two things. It can mean, one, that they're not paying attention to it and people are just over it, or two, the indoctrination is so entrenched at this point that they're just passively absorbing this information, accepting it as truth, and now it's become normal that, yeah, of course we're in space. So I could look at this either way, of how is the general populace accepting this information going forward, because it seems to me they're doubling and tripling down. If Japan's on the moon, if India's on the moon,
Another one
Russia
has to
was
as well.
what?
Yeah, if someone goes to them, then someone has to try, and also all of a sudden a month later, this person's also on the moon, or they go to
Right.
this. And that is that. I think they're giving much more pushback. You know, they're pushing more. But that's how we spoke earlier, that they're definitely pushing space a lot more. I think it's because they feel threatened. I really do think it's because they feel threatened. More and more people are realizing and waking up to there's some bullshit. I mean, how much globies do you have today that say, yeah, no, we've never been to the moon, for instance? You know what I mean? So I think they do feel threatened. So they have to propagandize space as this awesome, yeah, we're going to the moon, you guys have to be part of it kind of thing, because it's their trigger mentality. It's they try to save what they got thing. It's like politicians when they are trying to advertise for campaigns when people have to vote for them. It's the same thing.
Let me ask you something. I think you have children. I'm not sure.
Yeah.
How do you teach your children, educate them? How do you approach this? Because obviously the things that you accept about this world are vastly different than the things in the standardized textbooks and that are accepted by, I'm sure, your community at large. How do you approach that?
Look, I let them decide on their own. I'm not going to force anything on them. You know what I mean? So I would explain to them, look, this is how I see a thing. This is how the schools will teach you, but I'm not going to push on you what you should see. When they're old enough to actually have the conversation, and I can say this is why, because they're still quite young, then we can look into it that way. You know what I mean? So I don't really push it onto them. They know this is what's going on. This is how I see things. This is how the school teaches them or whatever. But I'm not going to go and say, oh, you guys, believe this or that, because I don't. I think everybody must have a fair chance to actually, investigate for themselves and think of it. If they have a question, I would answer fairly and I'd say, this is my thoughts. What do you think? But they're still young. They're still going to get into it and will obviously still debate it. You don't know, whatever they choose.
I like that. I wanted to ask you, it seems like you have a number of anti-flat earthers that follow you around,
Oh yeah.
things like that. Now, it's the same thing with me, man. And I have to wonder sometimes, do you think these people are literally being supported to do so? Or do you think they're doing this because they actually believe in their cause of the globe? Because to me, more and more, it seems as though it's unnatural in a way. Now, at this point, Flatzoid, they may literally be AI bots, and I've seen that more and more. That it seems like they have AI doing a lot of their dirty work for them. But other than that, there seems to be a contingency of actual, flesh
There's
and
obsessed.
bone people that are just spending inordinate amounts of time in a way that seems somewhat psychopathic with this endeavor. I want to know your thoughts on that. Do you think this is AI? Is this a push from some counter op?
I
Are they trying to discredit us? Go ahead.
I think it's a mixture though, because definitely you do have very obsessed individuals. I mean, which are real people, by the way. But if you look at their personality traits, they are, yeah, almost weird, obsessive kind of personalities. And then you get, I would definitely agree, there's some bots, like you get chat skank bots, okay? They just repeat themselves, they spam the same nonsense, doesn't matter what you say, they are bots. Then you also get anti-flat earthers, like, for instance, fighter flat earth and stuff. I think behind the scenes they do actually get paid for. I mean, think about the contributions they get, even if you just look at it from their fans' point of view, you get pushed everywhere on the algorithm. Your fans, I don't know, they out of nowhere give them like £100 and stuff at a time for a super chat kind of thing. Where does normal people today just have things like that? You know what I mean? It's just really weird. It's like literally opposite spectrum of what flat earthers are. I mean, if we were all in it for like that type of thing, we definitely wouldn't be doing what we're doing now. You know what I mean?
I
So
agree with that.
I think it's half and half. Some are bots, some are just very obsessive weirdos, and then you get those that maybe are paid a bit for their services, you could say.
Yeah, I would agree. I see the same kind of mix of things. The bots appear to be advanced. I mean, I've had bots that appear to have been interacting with my live chat. Now, I can't confirm that, but that's different than a bot leaving a comment on a video. This is an active bot. Let's talk about the AI, because I'm seeing YouTube especially is becoming very AI dominated, even in the content, the things that are being pushed to me in my homepage. It seems to be AI it's definitely AI produced, voiced. I'm wondering if not that they maybe potentially be AI generated completely from the content to the channel.
Oh yeah.
I mean, I don't put anything past this AI at this point. Where do we,
I don't know if you've seen my because AI has been pushing it. I mean, even I've actually brought out 2 Spanish videos recently where it was dubbing my voice and stuff in my actual voice, and it was AI that did it. You know what I mean? Where people are like, hey, you're speaking Spanish. It's not me, dude. But yeah, there's definitely channels out there that are 100% AI. I know YouTube's also trying to come up with a policy where they're trying to sort of limit AI, what you can do with it. So there is going to be structure to that. But AI is being pushed a lot. And I think it's very scary to where it's going, that at a stage, I don't think we're going to know what's AI and what's real. I really do think that.
mm-hmm.
Definitely.
with your let's say your religious beliefs, for lack of a better term, your spiritual beliefs, and the things that you accept about, the deity, the creator. Do you see this AI, this technological push, this bio-digital convergence, this transhumanist agenda that we seem to be observing? Do you see this as the satanic inversion, the Luciferian dream, so to speak?
Yeah, it's
What are
like
your
the mark of the
thoughts?
beast kind of thing. Yeah. No, definitely. I see it as an integration. They need the AI to integrate us into their matrix system, you see, because just like the Bible says, you won't be able to buy or sell anything if you don't take the mark. And obviously AI is going to have to be integrated biometrically. So I do see it as like an integration for the mark of the beast. Yes, definitely. I mean, think
Yeah,
about it. How's everything going to be when it's digital? I mean, they're really trying to push out fiat currency. They're trying to push digital everything for a reason, because if it's digital and you got nothing to barter with, you're stuck. You're either going to take what they say or you don't.
yeah. To me, this is their final push for domination. I look at it like this. They call it a new world order. I just see it as a world order that probably always existed, but now is making their final push with the technology. It seems to be their primary means of control at this point, because it's really mind control. I see a humanity that is accepting its tyranny and enslavement, and they're choosing it, because I feel as though there's certain principles of natural law that exist here under God that cannot be violated. And one of those is you cannot violate one's sovereignty, because I feel like we are all sovereign beings under the Creator. So, in an effort to conform to natural law, they must get us to consent to this world that they're creating for us. We have to choose each step towards their tyranny. And I do agree that this digital currency is one big step that they're moving us into, man. Even the technology in general. I mean, it's almost impossible to exist in society without a smartphone at this point, or a computer. It's accepted. If you want to make an airline reservation, even a dinner reservation, where I live near one of the major cities here, you know, if you want to pay for your parking space, it used to be a meter where you'd put the quarters in. Now it's an app on your phone. So everything's digitized, man, and everything is through these phones. So this is the tiptoe they do on their way to their totalitarian dictatorship, right? And their despotic rule over mankind, is they get us to accept it slowly, like a slow boil. But I think we are reaching a tipping point. Do you think men and women need to make active efforts to resist the technology and almost swing the pendulum back to a more natural world? Maybe it's growing gardens in your backyard, start to grow your own food, or homeschool your children, or modify the way one travels. What are your thoughts on in that domain?
Yes, I 100% agree on that. If you've realized through generations now how people have declined in having attributes like being able to start a fire on their own, grow gardens, being able to source things on their own. All they know today, look at all the young people today. What are they going to do? I want food, I go to the takeout, or I go to the shops. They don't know how to make a fire. They don't know how to make their own food. They don't know how to grow something. It's just how it is. And yeah, with the homeschooling, 100% agree. I mean, my oldest daughter's already, we started homeschooling her now as well, because there's a the things the schools are teaching is literally rubbish. I mean, the other day we heard now that they have a demerit system for the children, that they tell the children, you're not allowed to tell your parents this. If they tell their parents that, they get a demerit on that special form. So they're literally teaching the children to be disrespectful and lie to your parents.
Right.
You know what I mean? So yeah, there's definitely a push that's really spiritual, as you say. And I think this is all just a spiritual battle. Everything happening now is coming to some kind of conclusion.
I would agree. I would agree with this.
People need to start standing up and doing something about it. I mean, you can't just stand back and just accept it. At least learn to grow your food. At least learn to be able to support yourself if something happens. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So we've gone over an hour, and I want to be respectful of your time, because I know it's very late where you are. What I'd like to do, what I'd like to do is, anybody in the chat, if you have a question for our guest tonight, Mr. Flatzoid, please now ask your question in the chat. Okay, just write it in the chat, preferably in capital letters, and maybe we'll get we'll get our guest to answer any questions you may have. First question comes from Delayed Choice. It says, does Flatzoid know anything about cell nav, which I'm sure is celestial navigation? Yeah, go ahead.
No, what does he need to know about it? Well,
Right.
by the way,
How's this? Ready? You need a flat baseline, which is the water towards the horizon, and then you take an elevation angle based off the stars, and then you could use multiple of those to triangulate your position. It's not hard. Go ahead.
Yeah, just like I showed my presentation earlier with Polaris, that's based on celestial navigation. That's how they got their nautical miles, because it's based on seeing how high above it is above the horizon. Now, with celestial navigation, why it needs to be flat is, first of all, you have an elevation angle. You have a 90-degree, which is in the same azimuthal plane as the star. You have a circle of equal altitude, which means the distance from you to that star at the GP is a flat basin. It's on exactly the same plane. So if that star is 3,000 miles away, that means that baseline is flat for 3,000 miles away, because it's lying on the same plane. And we all know to have an angle, you require two straight lines. And you standing at the vertex means the baseline is flat.
Good answer. Jill the Pill, who appears to be a lovely Asian woman, at least by picture. Who knows? I mean, it could be a big fat guy from Brooklyn, like eating a cheesesteak right now. But anyway, the lovely Jill the Pill asks, are you married?
Yes, I am. Been married for about almost 15 years now.
Blessings on that one. Jay says, Flatzoid's perspective, what are your thoughts on eclipses?
My thoughts on eclipses, I can't really make claims on what it is, but based on what I can say and how it could work, definitely looking electromagnetic. It could be plasma and it regenerates. But I say I can't really make a claim on what it is, but that's just my opinion on what it could be. I think
so good.
I would think it being regenerating using electric current and stuff would be more plausible than a rock floating in the middle of the sky.
Right.
You know what I mean?
There's a couple of things I want to say on the eclipses. One, people think that heliocentrism is how we were able to predict eclipses, and that's completely false. The eclipse cycle is basically an 18 to 19-year cycle that was known to the ancient Chaldeans, which preceded the Sumerians and was many thousand years before the birth of Christ. And it's called the Zero cycle. They were a flat earth culture, obviously. So this idea that it's heliocentrism that predicts the eclipses is completely wrong. Every culture on earth knew it throughout antiquities, including in the Central and Southern Americas. The second thing I want to say is I interviewed Crow 777 on my channel maybe a week or two ago. And we brought up the topic of the ancient Vedic conceptions of Ketu and Rahu, which are these heavenly bodies that are basically unseen to the naked eye. Then they consider them nodal points in the sky that could be eclipses. So the eclipse is debunked, okay? The 72-mile diameter of the Earth shadow shows that whatever's causing it can't be greater than 72 miles because no object casts a shadow smaller than itself. So the 72 diameter of the total eclipse that we see when there is one, the geographic 72 diameter of that eclipse, 72-mile diameter, evidences that the object is no bigger than that. So
yeah,
right there. Plus the Selenalian eclipse, you can look that up. It's called a Selenalian eclipse. And even during the lunar eclipse, the angle of the supposed Earth shadow is inverted. It's debunked. Earth shadow and moon shadow and moon occlusion for the solar eclipse, that's debunked.
And I also got to add, I mean, just lunar eclipses and things shows that the moon is actually its own light. It doesn't have light from the sun. I mean, you can even look at the moon out when it's cloudy. Why is there no light coming from the sun to the stars from from the other side? It's only illuminated from the moon itself. So yeah. Oh, right. And also what I want to ask to add with the celestial navigation. Do you know celestial navigation was literally made by flat earthers? The first people to do celestial navigation were all flat earth civilizations. Just had to add
right. For anybody who doesn't know, the Phoenician culture, which again existed BC, navigated this entire world. They had it mapped out. Even maps that we have today from the 14 and 1500s, whether it's the Urbano Monte map, the early Mercator maps, et cetera, and even the Far East maps, they showed what this world is. They had it mapped out. They weren't unintelligent. They likely had greater technology than we do. And they weren't antiquated. They were actually highly advanced. So, and just to finish out the moon, simple physics disproves that moonlight is reflected sunlight, because energy, whether it's mechanical energy like sound or electromagnetic energy like light, it dissipates at the inverse of the square, which means that each successive doubling of distance, it's 25% of the light intensity. And you find very quickly that the light couldn't travel that far and keep its intensity, certainly not reflecting off of a dusty, dirty ball.
Also, it will be bright on the one side where the sun is supposedly shining its light on it.
Right. And on a full moon, there's no hot spot. If you had a sphere, there'd be a hot spot and it would diffuse around the ball. It's debunked.
Exactly.
Let's move on to the next question. This is from Mr. One to One. It says, Flatzoid, will you let Z moderate a debate with you and Dell? I think that's a great idea. I'd probably be the perfect person for that, because I seem to be one of the only people who are not who's not hand wave dismissing the rising Earth, other than the Dellites.
No,
we're gonna
I love that.
Yeah, we're gonna try to line that up. I need to get in touch with Dell. For a number of his listeners watch me, and they're very active, man. Flatzoid, if I say motionless Earth, they will correct me every single time. So I've pinned their main argument down to this. They say that relative density disequilibrium ceases in a free fall, which they postulate as stasis. All right. To them, a free fall is a stasis, and they say the reference plane is then moving up. That's their biggest claim. So we don't have to get into it again. But
yeah, but I just want to quickly break that down, though. They don't understand. This bottle is falling. There's air inside this bottle, and there's water. It's all falling at the same rate. So the net force is zero. This is just normal physics. But they're trying to change the reference frame of saying the bottle's not falling. It's just you rising up. That's why the net force is zero. So they're saying, so everything's falling at the same rate, so therefore you're pushing gravity. No, I'm not.
Right.
I'm just saying.
And I think they also ignore inertia.
And
I think they ignore inertia, because say you're in a car and you have a neutrally buoyant helium balloon in a car. When you accelerate, the balloon moves forward, which is counterintuitive. But in reality, it's because the air, which is denser than helium, moves back due to inertia, and it pushes the helium forward. We can get this is a big topic.
But it'd be great if we can have a debate about that, and I'd love if you moderated. I think we're cool.
Let's try to get. First, I need to get in touch with Flatzoid. I've often said, Dell, I gotta get in touch with Dell, but I've often said that if like we tried to settle like the whole gravity debate by like a cage match, like a big fight, like a rumble, and the last person standing wins, the Rising Earthers would win because Dell would just beat everybody up.
He's a big guy.
He's a monster. He's very intimidating. He loves smoking those homemade rolled cigarettes and just screaming at his phone when he's playing the guitar. I love you, Dell. Come talk to me, dude. This one just says, no questions, just respect for Flatzoid. So much love there.
Okay.
The lovely Heidi, the Divine Spark 313 asks, I have a question. What does the rest of his t-shirt say? I need to know, please.
Don't fart.
What is it? Don't. It just says don't fart. Okay. And that's
if you do weightlifting, you'll know why.
Yeah, it's a clean and jerk, by the way. That's a clean and jerk. I've noticed you've set an intention to get in shape. I see that on your channel. Good for you, man. Like going on with like no shirt on and stuff. That takes balls, especially with all the trolls you have. This one just says, you obviously don't understand the sheer size of the universe and the distance separating the stars. No, I think we understand just fine. Another question asking for your t-shirt. Here's RT. He says, Zetetic Warrior, what are Flatzoid's opinion about the accuracy of David Weiss's Flat Earth map and app? Okay, so let's go with it. Okay. People will say, where's your model? Where's your model? Do you feel as though the Gleason's map, the azimuthal equidistant map, is the accurate representation? A lot of people can disagree with this. Your thoughts?
Look, I think it gives for what it has to be for certain aspects. Perfect. You know, it can give a visualization for people that need to know things. Do I ascribe to it 100%? No, I don't, because I don't think it is 100% accurate representation. And like I said, if it's meant to explain something, great. But I personally, I believe that the continent stuff aren't really put where people are saying they put. That's why the distances don't really match. Because if you look at cartography and maps throughout history, why do you think it's always changing so much?
Right.
I have a suspicion that we're not really told everything's supposed to be.
I think the Pacific Ocean is key because they say it's so big and they can mess a lot with the Pacific Ocean. When I had Jaron on, he thinks that the equator, the quote unquote equator, you know, is actually 20,000 miles in circumference as opposed to the proposed 24,901. He thinks that North America is actually smaller, which is interesting. This question comes from Nuba, who's one of the Aussie listeners to Z Show. He says, Flatzoid, Windows, Mac OS, or Linux? He can assume a lot from your answer.
When it comes to doing design, I'd say Mac. When it comes to gaming, I'd say Windows. And when it just comes to ordinary comfort, you know, home use, I'd say Linux.
Interesting. This isn't a question, but a claim. Maybe you can either confirm or deny it. It says, Flatzoid thinks Dave Weiss is a shill.
Yes, to an extent, because I don't think he was always there. I think he's more in it for the money now, because when you do try and ask him things, he'll roll the, you know, because he makes sure he pushes his app where he can. And if you want to really converse about something, he'll rather just flash his money around kind of thing. So that to me is very shill-like behavior.
Well,
he won't concede where he's from.
Well, but we know where he's from. He's part of God's chosen tribe. So it's in his genetics. So I don't hold him accountable for that. I like Dave. I'm a Dave fan. Let me see if there's any other questions.
Well, if Dave ever wants to actually come have a proper conversation with me, I'm more than happy to hear him out. You know what I mean?
Yeah. RT, I brought up your Anglican book, Common Prayer. You didn't have to put it in there. I did it for you because I knew you'd be spurging in the chat. And by the way, RT, you can't tell me that the 7-day week exists because it's a quarter of the moon cycle. That's completely arbitrary. There's no week, RT. I don't know why Flatzoid people won't understand this. There's a year cycle, there's a day cycle, there's a month cycle, a month.
13 months. Exactly.
But there's no RT, just to arbitrarily break the moon cycle into quarters and roughly say there's 7 days because of the full moon, the half moon, the new moon, then the waxing or the waning half moon, and then the full moon again. Dude, that's arbitrary. Why not halves? Why not eighths? Why not 16ths? Flatzoid, your thought?
You know, it's exactly that. The thought of a week actually is pagan religion. It's not really based on his history. It was always 13 months, moon months, like you said, just based on the cycle of the moon's cycles. The week is just arbitrary. Actually, it's got nothing to do with it.
So the moon cycle they say is 28. It's actually 29.3. Now, most years there's 12 moon cycles. Every 2 to 3 years there's a 13th, and that's the true blue moon, everybody. When there's a 13 moon cycles in 1 year, that's a true blue moon, not the one that they made up where they say two full moons in the same arbitrary 31 or 30-day month. That's bullocks. Let me see if there's any more questions for you.
I see. We've got a Globezoid in chat.
There's a Globezoid. I was wondering if you knew him. Yeah. A lot of people just going back and forth with each other, which is, of course. I asked for people to hear it. Well, Flats. Yeah, okay. I already asked that one about Dell's a moderator. Okay, RT, about the Lord's Prayer. Keep it in your pants, dude. Holy moly. Talk about spiraling. Zetetic Warrior, the heliocentric model can predict eclipses down to the seconds. Didn't we just talk about that, Flatzoid? This person,
Yes.
Sava, says the heliocentric
Cycles,
model can predict eclipses down to the seconds as well as past. And so, no, it's the Soros cycle, man. That's it.
Yeah, they literally take the heliocentric model and they back engineered it off of the Soros cycle.
They don't want to hear the truth, really, which is fine. Okay. I want to be fair to the listeners. Flatzoid, any thoughts on the stars being of samoluminescence? I've been talking about that a lot on my channel lately. Go ahead.
I definitely am for that, because even in my Christian belief, the stars are in the firmament, and just like you can have solar luminescence, obviously it's in a liquid or water, and it's sound vibration, like we were saying. So yeah, I'm definitely all for the stars being luminescent. Definitely.
Me too. It's to me, it's a possibility. I hold it there. I'm fascinated with that principle. I've been really going into the concepts of ether here, sympathetic vibration, perpetual energy. We've been breaking it down, the 369 ratio, and how there is truly perpetual energy here that I think has been occulted and hidden from us. And I do think it's evidenced by all the architecture and engineering that we see from the old world that now have been converted to cathedrals. But God, that's a whole nother subject. We go off on that. Quickly, somebody talking about the Phoenicians. He said the Phoenicians had higher tech than we do. That guy isn't serious. Yeah, I'm serious. Serious.
I think there's a lot of technologies we have today that actually make us look stupid. Compared to, I mean, how did they build the pyramids? Come on, show us today how to do it.
Right, exactly, dude. And the pyramids, dude, there's overwhelming evidence that there was a worldwide civilization that existed either pre-flood or post-flood. And I think the timeline is much sooner than they give us also. But yeah, evidence of worldwide advanced technology, stories of Atlantis, stories of the land of Lemuria or Mu. The Theosophical Society knew all about it. The mystery schools knew all about these ancient cultures. The cultures were hijacked through the Catholic Church in cooperation through the unholy alliance with the Vatican and our small hatty friends that basically originated in the land that is currently called the Ukraine, known as the Khazars. Sovereign Souls talking about Gleason. He said the Gleason's map is a timepiece, not a map, really. Look at the Royal College of Longitude. Yeah, good point, man. Good point on that one.
It's not a distance map, and this is one thing that the Globies love to strawman us with. They show the Gleason's map, and they say, "But look, the distances don't match." And the more we say, "It's not made for distance. It's not a distance map."
Right. And Sean Alke's actually confirming what I said. The moon cycle is actually 29 days, 29 point some. Yep, that is true. They really follow you around, Flat. So, like, I get my share of trolls, but you can tell they are dedicated to you.
You know how much better it's got on my channel since I've put my comment section on review all. You know how much buttered comments I get a day, literally just swearing me and giving me death threats.
It's crazy, man. All right, man. Here's what I think. It's an indication of their level of indoctrination, because what it's really doing is it's challenging their identity, because they have a belief system. a belief system that is based on their propaganda and the operant conditioning that everybody's been under since the day we're born. Based on that, people build a worldview, a paradigm, a lens through which they view this reality. Around that paradigm, they build an identity. So when we challenge their paradigm and their belief system, they're actually taking that as an ego blow, and it's challenging their very identity of themselves. Thus, the emotional negative reaction, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Jay, I'll ask him. Jay says, what are Flatzoid's thoughts on Z not participating in Cunnilingus? So I'm not asking him that. Don't answer that, Flatzoid. Don't answer that. That's not appropriate. What the fuck's wrong with you people? That's crazy. All right. That appears to be it for the questions. Flatzoid, it's been an hour and a half. Great interview. One for the books, good sir. And just as good, if not better, than I knew it would be. There's an interesting thing, Flatzoid, about flat earthers. We can see each other and identify each other like super quick. I mean, I have that in me. Like I can listen to somebody for minutes, if not seconds, and I can know if they're a flat earther or not. Do you find that same phenomenon?
Yeah, definitely. We have a certain way of communicating things, I'd say. You can see someone's really thinking logically or just brain dead zombie on certain topics, then you know. It's almost like you build a sixth sense.
Right, dude. Exactly. Thank you, Gary Baxter. This was an excellent interview, an excellent discussion. Link to Flatzoid's YouTube channel is in the chat currently, as I'm pasting it in. And I've dropped it multiple times. Now, you do a daily show, and in the Americas, it's like an afternoon show, but I know where you are, it's late. Is it your weekdays, 7 days a week? What's your schedule like?
I just take Tuesdays off, actually, because that's the time I spend with my wife. And then Monday, Wednesdays, straight through the week, I try to have a show where I can. Sometimes it's like 11 p.m. by me. Sometimes most of the time it's about 9:15. It's just works that way.
Yep.
Yeah.
And his show is definitely flat earth centric, but there's all other topics. And he hosts an open panel and he allows people to come up and speak. And that's one of the things that I really like about you is that you encourage open discourse. It's the same thing that I do here. I find a lot of content creators, for whatever reason, are just interested in presenting their information and letting it out there. But to me, this is a learning process. And when you allow open and honest discourse, I feel though that is the truest way to get somewhere close to truth because it allows all perspectives. And the one thing we should all be endeavoring towards is to disprove our belief system. If you believe something, you should put it to the test. And if it's true, it'll hold up. And that's what science really is. Because when you actually propose a hypothesis, you're seeking to disprove the hypothesis or prove the antithesis. People don't understand that.
That's
all right. Yeah. All right, guys, check out Flatzoid. He does this thing every day. Good stuff, man. Any closing thoughts for the audience?
Yeah, I just want to say thank you for the coming. I'd definitely like to do it again. Was awesome. You can also come onto my channel sometime. Be great. But it's good to see your channels growing so steadily, man. And I'll definitely be pushing your content out.
Great, man. Appreciate that. Yeah. So what I'll do is eventually I'll take your interview, I'll edit it, and then I'll put it out as a video, and then I'll link your channel. And then I have, for anybody who's new to my channel, please take this opportunity to subscribe to my channel, Zetetic Warrior. And if people want to see my older content, I have playlists under my videos. Okay. I have the Z Files. I have the Z Files Flat Earth. I have Z's Truther Studio, and that's where you'll be able to find this video and others. I've interviewed a bunch of prominent flat earthers and other people at this point. I have #science playlists, so you can check out my old stuff curated under my videos under under multiple playlists. This was great, man. And yeah, I'd love to do it again. And good luck, man. You're doing great stuff, dude. And I'm certainly I'm going to be supporting you moving forward 100%. So much love, dude.
Awesome. Thanks, man. You rock.
Back at you. Back at you.
Now I'm going to bed.
Bye-bye, man. Much love. Mr. Flatzoid. Yeah.